Hey guys, I'm live, and this is episode 52. I'm going to try to do a live episode right now. So what I want to cover in this episode is stock to flow and really the core value proposition of Bitcoin, which I think is really interesting. And those two things together, I think, will give you a pretty good understanding of why you really don't need to go outside of the Bitcoin ecosystem in order to profit here. So let's start with the kind of the core value system of Bitcoin. So I think there really is four key advantages of Bitcoin as a currency, and those are number one, it's hard money. So it's hard to make Bitcoin. Bitcoin is, hey, lastly, right over here. Let's try this. Okay. Again, let's start over a little bit here, and let me just make sure is my mic working? Can anybody hear me? Let's just see. Test. Okay, I think it's working. The mic. Let me just make sure it is working, the mic. Okay, sounds good. Good, perfect. So what are we talking about in terms of the key characteristics of Bitcoin, right? So there are really four that I can really make out. The first thing is that Bitcoin is hard money, right? So gold is pretty hard money too. It's hard to make gold. And Bitcoin has the sort of the same hardness or better than gold. So it's hard money. That's the first characteristic. The second characteristic is that Bitcoin is easy to move, right? So if you have Bitcoin, you can move Bitcoin to another person anywhere in the world fairly easily, right? Fiat is also easy to move, at least in the United States. It's not easy to move across countries very, very much. So, and so a lot of people have focused on that as a core use case for cryptocurrency. But it's, fiat is easy to move. And so is Bitcoin easy to move? Yeah, Bitcoin's easy to move. Is gold easy to move? No, it is not easy to move. You have to put it on either, airlines or ships in the 1970s. They actually tried to put it on ships. It's not easy to move. The third characteristic is people forget is that Bitcoin is completely auditable. So if you want to prove that you have Bitcoin, it's pretty easy to sign a Bitcoin transaction to prove that you have it, and you can verify an address. So Bitcoin is incredibly auditable, and this is a big characteristic relative to gold, because gold, not easy to audit. You can claim there's gold in your vault, but it's like you have to send people in, you have to go assay the gold. It's not easy to audit. So that's a big, and also fiat's not that easy to audit. I can have money in a bank account, but it's not a public address like Bitcoin is. It's just not as easy to audit. And and then the fourth aspect of Bitcoin, which is completely revolutionary, is that you can hold it yourself. It's a self-sovereign asset, right? And if you think about it, yeah, you can hold gold yourself. You can dig it in the ground and put it there, but it's not easy to hold yourself and move it around with you. And that's a key characteristic of Bitcoin that really is just amazing relative to gold, and also amazing relative to fiat, right? So you could take Russian rubles out of Russia. They're useless. They're worthless, right? And they're pretty hard to walk over the border with $1 million worth of rubles either, even if you could do it. So the self-sovereignty of Bitcoin is another thing. So you have these four key advantages that really make it an unbelievable currency. Now, certainly on the surface, those four advantages also apply to every other cryptocurrency, right? So in particular, let's just take Litecoin as an example, right? Litecoin is, hard to make. Can't make it that easily. so it's hard money. It is, you can move it pretty easily, just like Bitcoin. In fact, it's almost identical. It is auditable, just like Bitcoin, and it is. Uh, and the last thing is you can hold it and you can secure it very easily. So Litecoin also has all these four advantages. However, it doesn't kind of have the network effect of Bitcoin, right? So these four things are kind of the key variables, but they're not sort of necessary, but not sufficient. Bitcoin, because it was the first one, because it has the hash power that protects it, it is superior to all other copies of it. That's very clear in the price of it. But purely on those four characteristics, it's the same as Litecoin or Bitcoin SV for that matter. So when you look at stock to flow, now let's just sort of analyze stock to flow. If you look at layer 2, I'll talk a little bit about that. So stock to flow basically is around this idea that you have a certain amount of stock of the asset that's piled up, and you have a certain amount of new mining of the asset every year or every block that's being produced. And the stock to flow of Bitcoin is a monotonic function. It's straight line, not straight line, but it increases. It always goes up with time, right? So it's a function of time. So because Bitcoin is a power law with respect to time, and that's very clear, you can see that, you can look at the thing in log space, it is undeniably a power law. And Giovanni kind of proved that it is a power law. And by the way, Litecoin is not a power law, right? So if you look at Litecoin, it doesn't go up in a line with log space. It went up in 2017. It still is way below the 2017 price of the log price. So Litecoin is not a power law, but yet it has the same stock to flow characteristics, right? So the key point is correlation is not causality, okay? And the fact that it's correlated does not mean that that's the reason it's going up, okay? And I really think the reason Bitcoin is going up is that it's a superior form of money, and it's going to be the replacement for fiat currency. And I think VJ had this great post where he sort of says, let's look at the, for basically 5,000 years, you've had gold being the gold standard. And then we have this sort of intermediate period of 100 years, which is the 20th century, where really we've had the fiat standard. And we're moving now to a new, more permanent hard money standard, which is the Bitcoin standard. So we're in this kind of world where we have, we went from one standard, we have this sort of intermediate thing that just worked because it was easy to move. That was the one characteristic that made it work. And if you look at the 20th century, it's not a great century for fiat, right? It started out 100 years ago, we had the German hyperinflation, right? And then we've had just one bad part of inflation or money printing episodes after another, whether it's Argentina or Turkey or Lebanon. I mean, this is Botswana, and now the US, right? So we have this kind of really bad history over the last 100 years, but we're moving now to this newer standard, right? Which is all Bitcoin. Now, if you think that's the case, right? You don't really need to fight stock to flow because there's stock to flow is sort of the scarcity is one of the attributes of these four attributes. The hardness of the money, that's one of the attributes. But basically, we're going to this new money. And really, if you believe that, basically, Bitcoin has to be going to multiple millions of dollars. $10 million very possibly. Okay, no problem, right? And if you believe that and you think we're going to get there in 10 or 20 years, your entire goal should be to stack sats, right? That's it. You are going to stack the sats. So a lot of people are saying, well, Fred, you're a rich guy. It's true. I am a rich guy. But if I was you know what? I wasn't always a rich guy. I was a starving student. And at Stanford, I had no money whatsoever, right? And, I was a graduate student like a lot of you guys are. And if I was a graduate student right now, I would it'd be very simple. I would focus on trying to get as much Bitcoin as possible. I would go for a high paying job or two or a consulting job, whatever I could do to get as much fiat as possible. And I would take that fiat and I would buy Bitcoin with it. And, can I get to, one Bitcoin? I think everybody listening could get to one Bitcoin if they really put their mind to it, right? You buy a little less, you work a little harder, you focus, you're going to get to one Bitcoin. So that's what I think. That's the lesson in all this is basically focus, work hard, and do not get distracted. Because look, you can get distracted with a lot of other cryptocurrencies, right? And you have to have focus. And if you diversify and you get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you're not going to get conviction. So I think having some conviction is going to help you tremendously in life. And that's really what I think. So I'm going to continue with this thing on YouTube, but I basically just wanted to get this video out, so everybody can kind of see that's kind of the message that I have. And look, I think it's a pretty simple message, and I think you should follow it. All right, I'm going to now record this thing on YouTube, and I'm going to upload it to X, where it's going to be in native format. And yeah, just follow me on YouTube. I'll talk to you guys later.